In this video, you'll learn how to set up Claude Code on a VPS, a virtual private server, securely and effectively. If you've been using or are thinking of using Claude Code, it's probably a good idea to stop and think about where you actually want to run it from. If you run it locally like most people do, you've got a few things working against you. One, your computer has to stay on 24/7. If you want Claude Code working overnight, or you want to talk to it remotely when you're away from your desk, that machine needs to be active with the power plugged in. Two, backup and security. All your projects, your files, your contacts, your API tokens, they all sit in one single computer. So what happens if it gets stolen, or runs into issues, or just dies one day? It's gone with the machine. And three, it's hard to share or hand off. Anything you build on Claude Code is tied to the laptop or computer that you're using. That's why most people who are serious about running Claude Code eventually move into a VPS. So first off, what's a VPS? A VPS is just a private computer you rent on the cloud. The provider takes care of the maintenance, the infrastructure, the uptime, and it's always on. You can access it remotely from anywhere, and you don't have to worry about your machine going up in flames overnight and destroying your work with it. Now that said, the moment you put Claude Code into a VPS, it's sitting on a public internet. So there are a couple security steps that most YouTube guys skip, but are important to make it all secure. So we're going to cover that simply, but in detail today. Real quick, if you find these breakdowns useful, do me a favor and hit that like button and consider subscribing. Now let's dive right in. Now the VPS provider that I'm using today is Hostinger. There are many platforms out there, but Hostinger is one of the most popular and reliable alternatives. And the best part is simple to deploy. Furthermore, for Claude Code, there's a simple off-the-shelf deployment option, which I'll link down in the description below, so it's just a one click. So to start off, where you want to head to is the Hostinger Claude Code VPS hosting page. And I'll share the link down in the description below for direct access to this page, where you can actually deploy a Hostinger VPS with Claude Code already installed in the VPS. So once you're on the page, you want to hit choose plan. And of course, there are a couple of plans that you can choose from. But if you're just starting out, KBM2 is more than enough. So I would recommend you going with that. So you choose plan, and then you'll be led to the checkout page, where then you can choose the period of the subscription. Of course, there's 1 month, 12, and 24. Of course, the values kind of increase as you move on in the longer period months. And you can also add the option of a daily auto backup on the VPS for $6 a month. And there is a choice for a server location, and what this is you want to choose a server that's closest to your current location just to reduce latency. It will actually automatically choose the location that's closest to you. So for example, by default, it's choosing Malaysia for me. And then operating system, if you're choosing the plan from the Claude Code page, you will see that Claude Code's already been selected here, and that will be installed in the Ubuntu OS. So there's nothing much you need to do here other than to check out, right? And of course, on the checkout, you can use iCode Automate with Marc, and that will give you a 10% off on the actual total amount of the subscription. So yeah, if you want to take it for a spin, go ahead and do that. And once you do that, it's going to ask you to create a root password, and you can easily generate a strong password here. I'm just going to show this, and of course I'm going to change this later on. And just make sure that you copy and paste it somewhere safe and keep it with you. Of course, if at any point in time, for some reason you lose your password, I'll show you where to get it on the hPanel later on. But yeah, so this is a password that you're going to use to be able to SSH into your VPS as a root user. So for the SSH key, we're going to skip this part for now because we're going to set it up later on ourselves from the terminal itself. So we're going to hit next. And currently, Hostinger is offering an additional feature of malware scanner. It's free, so I'm just going to tick yes and finish setup. All right, so it's going to take a couple minutes to set up the VPS. So, okay, so now the VPS is set up, and I'm going to hit Manage VPS here. You're going to be led to this page, and this is basically the hPanel page, and this is where you can configure, manage, and control your VPS. So as you can see, Claude Code is already installed in the VPS, so later on in the terminal, you don't actually have to run the installation of Claude Code anymore. So there are a couple of things here that you want to look at, right? Like if you want to go into a terminal inside the VPS, so VPS, just picture it just like your own computer. The way you would run Claude Code is either go to your VS editor or maybe into your own terminal. And here, as you can see on the top right hand corner, there is the terminal option as well to get into Hostinger. And if you click on this, it will open up a terminal tab on the browser, a VPS terminal, right? And actually, you can start using Claude Code from here. What you can do is you can actually run Claude, and it will actually run within that terminal right away, right? Because it's already pre-installed. But obviously, this is not the recommended way to do it because you're essentially running Claude Code with your root user. Running it as a root user means any prompt injection, any bad commands can wipe out essentially anything on the entire system, right? Because root user has no guardrails. There's no permission denied. There's no additional safety baked in. So obviously, this is not the way that we want to be running Claude Code in production. So what you want to do is actually now SSH in as a root user through your own terminal. So picture your VPS as a building sitting on a public street. By default, that building has a bunch of doors on the outside. In tech terms, we call these ports. Anyone walking down the street, meaning anyone on the internet, can walk up to your building and try a handle on any doors. Most of them are locked, but they're still there. Bots are knocking on them all day, every day. SSH stands for Secure Shell. Secure because the connection is encrypted. Nobody snooping on the network in between can read what you're typing. Shell because once you're in, you get a command line on the remote machine. When you SSH into your VPS, all you're really doing is walking up to a specific port 22, knocking and proving that you are who you are and getting let inside. And then you can type commands in the VPS the same way you would type commands in your terminal. Some people call this tunneling in, which is the same thing. Now here's the problem. That door is on a public street. Anyone in the world can walk up and try to handle. The standard device is a strong password, and that helps, but the door is still there. Someone's always knocking. So instead, we're going to do something better. We're going to move that door off the public street entirely. That's where a tool called Tailscale comes in. Think of Tailscale as a private gated street that only you and your VPS lives on. Once your laptop and your VPS are both on that gated street, they can talk to each other directly. And then on top of that, we add another layer of firewall to close every door on the public street to the building and only listens from knocks coming from inside the gate, which is Tailscale. So the first thing you want to do is actually SSH into the VPS. As you can see under root access, there is a SSH root access. So this is basically tunneling SSH in as a root user. So we're going to copy that, and then we're going to go and open up our terminal. So once you open up this terminal, and again, this is a terminal on your own computer, on your local computer, it's not on a VPS. So what you want to do now is basically tunnel into the VPS. So by just copying the SSH space roots and the IP address of your VPS. So when you do that, for the first time, it's going to ask for you to confirm the authenticity, and here you want to just say yes, and then it's going to ask for your password. And remember, the password is basically the root password that we got from earlier, and you just want to paste that in. And just in case you forgot the root password, you can go over to the hPanel here and change the root password, and now you can generate another strong password and copy that again and hit confirm, and there you go, you've changed your password. Then I'm just going to go back to the terminal here and paste the password, and then we should be in. So let me just open this up. Okay, now I've successfully SSH in, and I'm currently logging in as a root user. So what you want to do is go over to tailscale.com. This is a tool, right? And it's completely free. But the second thing you want to do is go over to tailscale.com/download. Don't worry, I'll link every one of these down in the description below. But just download it based on the system requirements that you have. And essentially, this is installing the Tailscale app on your local machine. So great, now you have a Tailscale credential set up, as well as the app downloaded, installed in your local machine. Once you've done that. But we still need to install Tailscale again on the VPS, right? So that it could actually pair. So how do we install it in the terminal is we want to go over to tailscale.com/docs/install into Linux. And of course, I'm going to share the link down the description below as well. And to make it easier, I'll also paste the entire command lines that I'm doing for this video in a file, and I'll link it down in the description below so you guys can just copy and paste it into your own terminal. But if you just want to know, this is from Tailscale and how to install it on a Linux machine, which is what we're really operating on. So here, we're going to copy the curl command right here, and then we're going to go to the terminal and just paste that curl command, and this is going to download and install Tailscale. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to copy the second command, which is sudo tailscale up, right? Sudo just means superadmin do. Tailscale up is basically to start a Tailscale client on the VPS side. So go back to the terminal, you want to paste that, but here we just want to add a /SSH. And the reason why we want to add the /SSH is because Tailscale up just connects your machine to your private Tailscale network, so you can talk to it. Adding the SSH at the end additionally turns the machine into one that you can log into over the network. And Tailscale will be able to handle the login instead of using SSH password or keys. In short, without the SSH, the VPS will be reachable on the same network, but with the SSH, it will also be able to accept remote logins. Okay, we're going to hit enter on that, and then it's going to give you a URL to authenticate, right? So we're just going to copy that URL and open it up on our browser right here. And it's going to ask you to log into Tailscale again. If you've already signed up earlier, then you would already have an account. If you haven't, then this is where you will be forced to sign up to. Okay, so we're just going to click on connect here to connect the two under the VPN. Okay, so login is successful. So let's go back to our terminal, and as you can see, it says connection success right here. Now, assuming that you have Tailscale installed in your machine, you would have Tailscale app that you can search and find and open. And once you open that app within your local system, you'll see that as long as this is toggled to connected, that you have your own machine on Tailscale and also the connection to the VPS. So the second device here, which is a CRV 164.7.992. If you look at the numbers here, they match CRV 164.7.992. So these are the two devices that are connected on the same VPN. So the next thing we want to do is we want to disable password authentication as well as the root login, right? So as you can see, I just copied in a bunch of lines here. And again, I'll share all the command lines here down in the description below. But essentially what this is doing is we're rewriting the config files such that we are setting the password authentication as no and the permit login or permit root login as no. So the reason we want to do that is we don't want to allow any password login. So we're only allowing people who are in the Tailscale network to be able to log in without password. And number two is we're not going to allow any root login. So again, like we talked about earlier, we don't want root logins as much as possible because that's just not best practice because it has full access to everything. And right at the end of all of that is to just restart the system such that all the changes takes place. So we're dropping all of this in these multiple lines just to let you know that that's what it's doing. Okay, so once you enter that, it's not going to show anything, but what you can do is to check whether the changes actually took place is to paste this line. Again, I will share the line down in the description below. And as you can see, it will tell you that the permit root login is a no now, password authentication is no, and authentication is no here. So all the ones that we want to turn off has already been turned off right now. So lastly, because we turned off root login, we better make sure that we add another user within the VPS such that he can actually log in as that particular user, right? So the command that you want to use is add user, your name, right? So in this case, I'm going to use user Marc. It's going to ask me for a password, so I'm going to type in my password, and it's going to ask for a full name and stuff like that. And actually, you can leave this blank if you want to, but this is just a default. And if you don't want to put anything in any of these, you can just hit enter, and then it's going to skip. So is the information correct? Yes, and it's adding user Marc to the group of users. And then the second command line that you want to type in is usermod -ag sudo Marc. And what this is doing is basically granting a super admin permission to this user Marc, right? So now I'm going to log in as Marc, right? So as you can see, when I log as Marc, it actually says Marc at the server number over here, right? So I've changed from root to now logged in as Marc. And so just to make sure that the super admin permission was granted to Marc or this particular user, what you want to do is just run sudo -v, and what it does, if it's silent and it doesn't return to you, that this user doesn't have super admin access, then you're all good. Then the user has the sudo access. Okay, so I just cleared my screen, but it's important to check all of that before you actually do a system restart because you may be logged out. Remember, we have disabled the root login, right? So you're no longer able to access the VPS through a root user. And so you want to make sure the user that you created has the right access. So for the restart itself, what you want to do is type in systemctl restart SSH. And again, you can just copy it from the description down in the link below and hit enter. And it's going to ask you to choose one of the two for the authentication. So I just signed in as Marc with the password that I've already set for a particular user earlier, and the authentication is completed. So at this point, you should be able to now log in as a root user. So last but not least, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the hPanel here, and we're going to add the firewall to ensure that it's only accepting requests from the Tailscale network. And the way we want to do that is head over to the security on the left-hand side panel here, and under security, you'll see firewall. And then we're going to hit the plus sign on firewall here. We're going to name the firewall something, right? Let's say the Great Firewall, okay? And then we're going to create that firewall. All right, right now it's not active yet, so we're going to hit this 3 dots over here, and I'm going to click edit. And we're going to keep the action as accept because accepting request, and protocol as UDP, and the port as 41641, which is the Tailscale port. And the source is from anywhere, and we're going to add rule to the firewall. So this is a firewall rule, right? Okay, so once that's done, what we're going to do is we're going to hit back, and we're going to toggle this on, right? So we're going to activate firewall, and from now on, any connection that goes into or tries to get connected to the VPS has to come from the Tailscale network. It will only respond to any request coming from that network, and therefore it's not even going to be visible to anyone on the internet. Basically, what we did is we took the doors or the ports off the public internet, gated with Tailscale, and protected all of that with a firewall that will only allow communication from the Tailscale network. Cool, and just to make sure everything is working perfectly, let's just exit this. Exit. All right, and clear this. Okay, so we're gonna, all right, let's do this, all right? Let's turn off our Tailscale, VPN for a moment. And here I'm gonna try to SSH into the root user on the Hostinger IP, right? So remember, originally we were able to just copy this, paste it on a terminal, and it's actually asking me for the password back, right? So this time we expect it to actually time out because the door is not even there. So there's no doors for you to knock at. You're not even gonna be able to guess the password. So instead of just typing in this, what we wanna do is actually add this part here where it says wait 10 seconds before it times out, because otherwise we'll be just sitting here waiting around for it to time out. So we're gonna try that without, again, having the VPN connected. Yeah, so as you can see, SSH connect to host port 22, operation timed out, right? So the door's not even there. They're not even going to be able to guess a password. And this is for the root user. So we're going to do the same thing now. And we're going to now SSH in as Marc. And this time, we're going to SSH in into our Tailscale IP address. We intentionally turned off our Tailscale VPN and see if we're still able to log in, right? So let's grab our IP address. Again, this time is the Tailscale IP address, okay? And we're going to do the same. And as you can see, that's timed out as well, okay? So now this time, let's turn on the Tailscale VPN, all right? Now both are connected, okay? And then we're going to just run the same command this time with the timeout as well, right? And there you go. We actually SSH into the VPS as Marc. So everything's working well. The firewall's blocking out the right things. It's only allowing connections if our Tailscale VPN is up and active and connected. So that's what you want, right? You are now no longer in the public street or in the public internet where people or bots can knock on your doors on your ports. At this point, anything that's on the VPS is secure. Of course, the other attack surfaces that is possible is through the hPanel itself, which is not actually talked about enough, right? So as you can see, you still have the terminal access that you can just click, and this is meant to be the emergency break glass, so it has nothing to do with SSH. It is Hostinger's own feature, so which means anyone who has access to your Hostinger is going to have access to the terminal through the hPanel. So what you need to do is to go under your account here, and under security, make sure that your 2FA is set up, right? So at the very least, people can't just guess your password. They actually have to be authenticated either with your phone or another device. And same thing with your Tailscale network. Anybody with your Tailscale access would be able to access this. So what you want to do is also to make sure that your security is set up, make sure that the 2FA is set up for Tailscale as well. And now that we've got the security stuff out of the way, what you can do is, of course, launch Claude Code on the terminal, right, on the VPS. So because we've created a separate user from root, and even though you see that Claude Code is actually installed on the VPS, you can't actually access it from the user Marc. Then you need to run this particular line over here. And the reason for that is because Claude Code was pre-installed in a particular folder. Imagine, you're moving a house, right? So now you moved into a new house. It's called Marc, right? So it's just this new user. And inside one of the packages that moved with you was Claude Code, but it is just chucked into the garage, right? So when you type in Claude and try to start Claude, what happens is the assistant's going to look everywhere else but the garage for this particular package because it doesn't know Claude Code is running in there. So what you want to do is just run this line so that it knows that when I run Claude or Claude Code, this is the path or location to look for Claude Code, right? So now you've run that, you can check your version of Claude. So Claude Code is installed, so you can just run Claude, right? And again, there's no installation required because it was already there all along. So you just need to point it into the right direction. So here at the start, this is very typical setup for Claude Code. So if you've done it before, this is nothing new. It's asking you what mode you want. And of course, if this is your first time, in order to use Claude Code, of course, you need the tokens, right? You need the subscriptions to Claude. So, and the most common ways are getting the Claude Pro, Max, Team, or Enterprise subscription. And then you can just connect that subscription. But for this case, I'm going to use console instead, right? So here it's saying that it's opening a browser, but nothing actually open. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it in my browser. I'm going to go continue with Google. Okay, I'm going to hit continue. And then I'm going to authorize. And then we're going to paste this code into the terminal right here. And that's it. We are authenticated. So I'm going to press continue. Security nodes, just continue on that. And yes, we're going to trust this folder. And there you go. And so yeah, this is Claude Code per the usual Claude Code that you would use. There are a couple modes that you can toggle it to. If you hit Shift and Tab on a Mac, it's going to either go with always execute mode or a plan mode where you can just chat with it if you're trying to build something first, or auto mode, so it's for it to decide, right? But I'm not going to go too deep into Claude Code. That's not the point of this video. This video is just to show you how to set it up on the VPS. And if you want to know more about how to run Claude Code and stuff like that, I might put together a separate video on that. But the idea is if you are wanting to use Claude Code in a more reliable manner, active 24/7, you want it to work around the clock, or you have agents that runs while you sleep, well, it is a good idea to run it on a VPS that's on for 24/7. But the catch is you need to make sure that the security side of things in terms of hardening your VPS connection needs to be done. It look a little bit complicated at first, but trust me, it's well worth it, just so that you have that additional layer of security. And of course, lastly, this is not the only way that you can deploy Claude Code. You can actually create an empty KVM2 VPS and choose your own operating system, whether that's Debian or Ubuntu, and just install Claude Code into the operating system the way you would normally install Claude Code on your computer, right? So you would go over to Claude Code docs, and if you're running it on a Linux, then just copy the curl command and it will install Claude Code the same way you would on your local computer. So that's totally up to you. And this is just because there is an off-the-shelf kind of thing from Hostinger. But of course, as you've seen earlier, because the Claude Code was pre-installed on the root user directory, you do need to run that extra line to make sure that you know where to look at when you're running it, not as the root user. So that's it. That's how to set up Claude Code on a VPS securely and effectively. And as always, if you find videos like this useful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. And I'll see you on the next one.